This is the Hitway BK6M, a folding e-bike that retails for about $650 and comes with a surprisingly powerful 750 watt rear hub motor, a 48 volt 14 amp hour battery for decent range, and 20 by 3 inch kind of fat tires that are actually becoming pretty common on these cargo bikes. Now it has a top speed of 20 miles an hour on throttle, so this is a class 2 e-bike. So this is my first Hitway bike, and I have to say this is an extremely competitive part of the market, and there's a ton of good bikes for this price. So does the Hitway BK6M deserve your hard-earned money? Let's get this thing out of the box and see how it is. Hit the fun! Hopefully I didn't just stab a tire. 2-for-1 move right here. Remove the death staples. You guys can see this is how everything is packaged, and you can see that red frame peeking through in there. See what they give us inside of this white box. Looks like we've got our charger in this white box here. 54.6 volts, 2 amp charger, and it comes with this type of connector on there. We've got another box here. They also give us one of these cable bike locks here. Then they give us a multi-tool in here, and they also give us some pedals. And I think we're gonna be able to just lift this one straight out of the box today. This is not a super heavy bike. Nothing else in that box except some paperwork for us to not read. Everything is really nice and compact here. Let's see if we can find our battery keys in this mess so that we can get this thing charging. And it looks like they even give us like a back seat on this bike, which is really cool. Hitway has given me a link to share with you guys to give you a nice discount, and I'll put all that stuff in the description and the first comment. And obviously using those links does help support the channel. But don't do any of that yet, because we got to find out if this thing is any good or not. I mean, this is like a really, really awesome assembly process here, because there really isn't much to assemble. And a lot of times it can be a bummer just having to sit there and put your new bike together, especially if you're not used to doing it. But this one, I mean, look, this thing's basically fully assembled already. I'm gonna free the back wheel here. Oh my God. Okay then. Even though there is a back seat here, I don't see anywhere for foot pegs. And I found our battery keys right here, so we're gonna get the battery off here. Just twist it off like that. So this is a 48 volt, 15 amp hour, 720 watt hour battery. So let's get this thing on the charger. And our seat is on a quick release here, and it looks like there is a little suspension seat post on this seat, which is nice because this bike doesn't have rear suspension. If you want to fold this down in the car and make it like as compact as possible, and you don't want to sit there and undo bolts, you can just quick release the handlebars, adjust them how you want, and then push the lever back and you're good to go. This is kind of an interesting quick release mechanism here. You just push it down like that and I guess you're good to go. Lock down our handlebars there, and then we'll lock the stem in place. I guess we've got everything assembled here on the Hitway BK6M, and this was just a super easy assembly because really the only thing that I had to put on was I had to tighten these screws down for the fender. Obviously I had to put on the pedals too, and I had to mess with the seat post a little bit, but that's not too hard. So let's take a look at this bike and see how it is. Up here at the front you have your 20 by 3 inch fat-ish tires. You can see this is a 26-inch fat tire right back here on the Wired Freedom, and this is a 3-inch diameter, which is kind of a weird size, but it's becoming more common. And you have got 160 millimeter cable brakes on this bike, which is perfectly fine because I think this is limited to about 20 miles an hour when you're just on throttle here. As you can see, we've got our headlight here, which should be nice and bright. I don't think there's a horn on this bike. Then we have a spot here for a front rack that we can screw in there. And then we have our front forks here, which are pretty basic. You have no lockouts or anything on here. It's literally just front forks straight up. And then we have our Hitway branding on the front forks too. We've got a nice metal fender on here. The paint on this Hitway is nice too. It is that red color, which I love. Then down here we have our folding pedals, which fold up just like this and make it easier to throw in a car, in a trunk when you fold it up. And then up here at the seat post, you can see I kind of put it on backwards because otherwise the battery wouldn't fit in back there. But it is a suspension seat post, it looks like. And it does have this little mechanism that you reach, a little latch down here that you reach in, and then you move the seat up like that so you can take the battery out, which we will do right now. And this key does control whether the battery's on or off, so you're gonna have to have it in a certain position when it's locked. But you can pull it out just like that. It's super simple and convenient to do. It is super tight between this and the seat post here. That's why I had to turn the quick release around. Turn our key back into the on position. Then we'll put our seat back down. And I guess we have this like padded seat back here, but like I said, there's no foot pegs, so I don't know if you can really sit back here or not. I don't know if this is even rated to hold somebody, but either way, I'm sure you could strap some cargo down to this and you'd be good to go. So in the back here, we have our rear cable brakes as well, 160 millimeter, I believe 2. And we have a really tiny little hub motor. This thing is thin since it's a 3-inch hub motor, but 750 watts should get the job done. So we've got this little hitway.com thing here, and then we've got this sticker, which I've never seen on an e-bike. It said, fording depth must not be beyond this warning line, which is interesting if you're gonna be wading water on your folding e-bike. Then in the back here, we have a tail light, which is also a brake light when you pull the brake lever. No turn signals on this bike, and we do have our metal rear fender here. We have our Shimano Tourney TZ derailleur back here with our 7 speeds. We've got our folding mechanism here, which I'll show you guys what it looks like folded up in a second. Then we've got our cockpit here, which is super simple but effective. And on this side, we have our standard e-bike grips. We have a little bell right here, and then we have our front brake on the left. Then we have our screen here, which we'll get into in a minute. And then we have that thing that I was showing you earlier, the quick release little thing for the handlebars here, which is awesome. Then we have our 7-speed shifter here. We have a quarter twist throttle, which isn't on right now because we're in pedal assist 0. And then we have our rear brake over here, and then same old hand grip on this side. We've got our 5 pedal assist levels here. We have our odometer here at the bottom. We have a battery, a bar right here, and then we have our speedometer here, which is limited at 20 miles an hour, I believe. And you can see we can go through our pedal assists, and that bar does change too. We have an indicator for our headlight, and to turn that off, you just hold the plus button. I think if you hold the minus button, you go into like walk mode. And then if you hold the plus and minus button, you can get into the settings menu. Freewheeling it, and it gets us up to like 19.6 miles an hour. If you wanted to fold this bike up, all you do is you would do the quick release right here. Push that over to the side, and then you can pull the handlebars down. And then this little locking mechanism here, like I showed you guys earlier, you can unfold that, and then you can fold the bike like that. And then if you want some extra space too, you can fold the pedals in so that you have even more space. And if you want even more space, you can do the quick release on this, and then you can tilt your handlebars up like that so that it's even, takes up even less width. And Hitway says that this bike is about 75 pounds with the battery, and it can hold about 270 pounds full load on this thing. So now that we've got everything assembled here on the BK6M, what do you say we get some air in these tires and take this thing out for a test drive and see how it does? All right guys, so we've been out here taking a look at the Hitway BK6M, and this thing has actually been a surprisingly impressive bike so far in the mile or two that I've ridden it. So I really love bikes like the BK6M that are foldable because I can just throw them in my car. Like I have a little Scion TC, it's a little hatchback, and you can throw like 2 of them in your car and just be gone and go wherever you want to go. The problem with e-bikes is they're really heavy, and a lot of times they're a lot bigger than regular bikes, and they're not going to fit on bike racks and stuff. But with a folding style bike like this, it's really awesome because you can just fold them up, throw them in your car, and take them with you. This bike has actually impressed me so far. It's actually somewhat powerful, and you know, you look at this bike and you wouldn't really assume that it's that powerful of a bike. And don't get me wrong, it's not like some speed demon bike, but it's actually got a good amount of torque for what this thing is. It's not a torque monster, it's not going to throw you off the back, but you know, you can do stuff like off-roading right here too. And you know, this is a fairly steep hill for a bike, and I can feel it accelerating up this. This is something that this bike shouldn't necessarily be able to do, and it's doing it just fine. We do have these 20x3 chunky tires on here because they're not fat tires. They're somewhere in between a regular bike tire and a fat tire, and you see these a lot on these cargo electric bikes now. And in my experience, I actually got a flat on one of these 20x3-inch wheels. My first flat ever, and I went to the bike store and they didn't have anything. I guess this is still kind of an uncommon size. And I was talking to the guy at the bike store, and he said that this is kind of an uncommon tire size right now, but they are starting to see it more, especially on like cargo electric bikes like this. So as time goes on, you should be able to get parts easier for bikes like this, but in the meantime, you can buy, you know, spare tubes and tires off of Amazon. Just keep that in mind if you are getting a bike like this with 20x3 tires, is it can still be kind of a hard tire size to find in bike shops. So I mean, as far as like cargo folding electric bikes go, I think the BK6M is pretty cool looking. We've got it here in this nice red color, and I like it a lot. I really like that they include this seat here, but it is kind of confusing because there's no real spot to put foot pegs on, so your rider's going to be like just having to hang their legs off the side, I guess. But I mean, this is a little rack back here that you can put stuff on, so you can tie stuff down on that. Also, that suspension seat post does help just a little bit. It's not the best quality suspension seat post because, you know, this is a more affordable bike, but it's not bad and it does help, and it's not a replacement for rear suspension, but it does help absorb some of those bumps. And the front suspension so far has been pretty good. Like I said earlier, this is a pretty light bike and it is a nice ride for a bike of this size. Brakes are surprisingly good on this, probably because there's not a whole lot of mass to be moving around on here. And you have that big battery back here, and overall this is just a pretty nice looking bike as far as, you know, cargo sort of utility bikes go. I like the Hitway branding and everything, the black and red accents. I think it looks really cool. I also like the fact that you can adjust the height of the handlebars and everything, and I kind of like this feature too, the quick release, where you can kind of twist the handlebars on the fly right here. Overall everything feels really sturdy though so far, and I'm really liking this bike so far. I'm liking it more than I expected. So let's get back on this thing and go see how this electric bike is as far as pedaling, because you're probably going to be pedaling on the Hitway BK6M. So there are 5 levels of pedal assist, and then there's 0, which is just purely a bicycle mode. And then you have pedal assist 1, which is going to give you just a little bit of help. And it looks like pedal assist 1 is going to get us all the way up to the top speed of about 20 miles an hour on this, which is weird because usually pedal assist is going to give you a speed limiter. This is a cadence sensor on this bike, by the way. So pedal assist 2 is going to give you a little bit more power. So I think the pedal assist on this bike, it doesn't limit your top speed. It just kind of limits the amount of power that you're getting from the electric assist. I'm really noticing a whole lot of difference in power on these pedal assist numbers. I'm gonna get down back on the path and see if I can pedal this thing up to 28. Sometimes manufacturers will limit the top speed. The definition of a class 3 e-bike is one that you can pedal up to 28 miles an hour, not throttle. So a lot of times you'll see bike manufacturers limit the throttle to 20, but then you can pedal to 28. And this is a really fun bike, even off-road. Brakes are really strong on this, for cable brakes especially. I'd say the brakes and the powertrain on this are actually really impressive so far. So we have gone about 5 miles now, and we have 1 bar down on our battery bar, and it's giving us about 49.4 volts when I'm on the throttle here. So I think we should probably be able to get like 25 miles of range out of this bike at least, especially since we're limited to 20 miles an hour. I know this bike could go faster, but it is limited to 20. I'm gonna see if I can pedal any faster. Looks like it is limited to about 20 miles an hour, even in pedal assist 5. It would have been nice to see some sort of higher top speed when you're pedaling, like being able to go like 24, 25, but it is what it is. So let's be honest, 20 miles an hour is probably all you need most of the time. But I like to go fast, and 20 miles an hour just doesn't cut it for me. So the ride on here is actually feeling pretty nice so far. It's nice and agile and quick to turn. I love how light this bike is. The seat actually does feel a little bit firm on here. I don't know how comfortable this is going to be for 25 miles of riding, but I guess we'll see once we get back to the garage. We just sagged down a little bit here on the battery meter. It's indicating 3 bars out of 5 now. And we are in a pretty strong headwind, so the motor's working hard to keep us going. Big bump. All right, so let's do a little bit of a hill test here. Now this is a really steep hill that you would not be able to pedal up, but I'm gonna see how this guy does with our electric assist on here. I know this isn't gonna do it throttle only. I'm gonna have to pedal. My GoPro flew off back there, but let's go down this hill and see how it does. It actually did make it up the hill when I was pedaling, but I had to pedal pretty fast. All right, let's try this one more time. Throttle and pedaling. Yeah, you can get up that hill with electric assist, of course. It's just that last steep part there that it has trouble with, but overall, you know, this is not a super weak bike. This is actually a fairly strong e-bike motor. And that was probably like a worst case scenario for this type of bike, but it is nice to know that even in worst case scenario, you know, you're gonna be able to make it up like a big hill or something off-road. So on this bike, your left brake is your front brake, and then you do have this little bell instead of a horn here. I don't know why there's no horn button, because in these headlights there usually is a built-in horn, a built-in speaker for a horn, but on here on the display you have a nice basic display, and right now I have it just showing my volts, but you can also show a timer, your odometer, trip computer, and your volts. And then obviously you have your pedal assist up and down here. You know, for a bike at this price point, you're not gonna expect the highest quality top of the line stuff, but this is gonna get you around, it's gonna do fine. So I think this bike is definitely more at home on stuff like this, like flat streets and flat pavement, but it is nice to know that you can climb some hills and you have a decent amount of power on this thing. So this is my first Hitway bike, and I've actually heard good things about Hitway as a company. I've heard that they have good support and everything. That's the thing about bikes at this price point, is it's such a competitive price point. There's so many options in that, you know, $500 to $1,000 price point like this bike sits. This bike, I believe, is $650 off of Hitway's website right now. You get a discount if you use my code though. And, you know, manufacturers really have to be able to set themselves apart in order to get some business. So I think that if you're in the market for kind of a folding cargo e-bike like this, I think this Hitway BK6M is actually a good option so far. I think that this is going to be for somebody who's more in like an urban area and who's legitimately using this thing to like get around and carry things with them and everything. This does have a spot for a front rack on here too, so you can throw some stuff on the front. It's not just that back rack. And I'm pretty sure you can remove that seat on the back too if you don't want that. It is really strange how there's that seat but no foot pegs on the back there. So we will do a top speed run and see if the speedometer is accurate here right now, so go. 15, 17, 18, and maxed out at 20 right there. So I would say this speedometer is actually pretty much dead on. I mean, you can see, well, I don't know if you can see, but it's matching up pretty much perfectly on the GPS. The GPS does lag a little bit, but overall the speedometer is accurate on this bike. Overall, so far, the BK6M is looking like a really cool bike. And I mean, I don't know if you guys can see this. It retails at $649, but you can't get a discount through my link. And I think this does include free shipping, but it says that they're charging $1,049 for this thing. Ain't no way they're charging $1,049 for these specs for this type of bike. But $649 with a little bit of a discount and free shipping is not a bad price for a bike like this. I think this is a pretty good value for what you're getting. And this is again, a pretty strong motor on this bike. I'm 150 pounds and it gets me going just fine. I was really impressed with how much torque this little hub motor has, especially on a 48 volt bike. This thing feels torquey. So we'll do a bit of a stop test on this bike going downhill at about 20. That's pretty much worst case scenario for this bike, and we locked that back tire up. But the brakes on here are actually really good, especially for cable brakes. These are more than adequate, and I think that since this is a bike that's limited at about 20 miles an hour, these brakes are more than enough to stop this. You know, usually I don't have the best things to say about cable brakes, but I think in this application on a relatively light bike that's only going 20 miles an hour, I think this is pretty good. Oh, the cops are coming. The cops aren't gonna get me on my Hitway BK6M today. I remember one time I was filming in this area actually, and a lot of times cops will be on these paths just kind of patrolling. So I remember one time I was filming up here, around here actually, and there was this cop that was like patrolling on the bike path like that. And we were filming and I was on a pretty fast bike, and we were going pretty fast on the bike path. There was nobody out really, but I was going pretty quick, and I thought for sure I was cooked. I thought for sure he was gonna yell at me. And he pulled up to us. He lowers his window and he says, "Hey, you guys filming?" And I said, "Yeah, we're filming." And he's like, "Okay, there's a great spot over here with a waterfall and blah, blah, blah." And I was like, oh man, I thought we were gonna get yelled at, but he ended up just being a super cool cop. Oh yeah, the BK6M on the road. Luckily, we don't need to be going too fast. And this bike, of course, doesn't have turn signals, so we're not gonna be able to really signal our turn here. You know, I really wish this bike wasn't limited to 20, because I genuinely do think this bike could do like 24, 25 just on throttle only. Dropped another battery bar here, and we've gone about 10 miles, and we're at about 46 volts, so just under half battery left. So I think that we're probably gonna be able to get around 20-ish miles on this thing. Now, this is a 14 amp hour battery, so not the biggest battery in the world, but when you're limited to about 20 miles an hour like this, you're not really going to be going through that much power, because you're not doing what the bike is totally capable of doing. You know, if we were cranking it at its max speed the whole time, then that 14 amp hour battery wouldn't be the best. But in this application, it should get us plenty of range. So overall, the BK6M, I'm actually pleasantly surprised with this bike. You know, I kind of looked at it and was like, okay, here we go, you know, another regular old folding e-bike, but this thing actually does stand out a little bit in this crowded market of foldable e-bikes. You know, it's got good power, it's got good range so far. I like the styling, I like the color, it's a relatively comfortable ride. The seat is actually kind of hurting my butt a little bit right now, but you know, that's an easy fix, you can swap that out. And for this price, I think it's a good enough seat. If you're in the market for a folding electric bike with a little cargo space on it for around this price point, I could definitely recommend the BK6M so far. We're gonna see the final range test in a bit, but I'm gonna go ahead, ride this around, kill that battery, and head back to the e-bike back cave and get back to you guys and give you my final thoughts when we're there. So I'll see you guys back home. All right, so back here at the back cave on the BK6M, and we made it about 23 miles here, as you can see on the odometer. As you can see here, no battery left, and it didn't like completely die on me, but it really wasn't giving me much power. I was having to pedal and help it out a lot. It wasn't really going on under its own power. So I called it at about 23 miles, and that was on basically throttle only. I'd imagine you can get way more mileage out of this thing if you do pedal it, which is probably going to be the use case for this bike, because this is a really good bike to pedal on here. So I mean, overall, my final thoughts on the BK6M are, this is a really good bike for that $650 range. And again, maybe you can pick it up for a little bit cheaper using any codes that are in the description and that pinned comment. But I think for around that $650 price, like I said, this is a pretty good bike. The fact that it folds is very convenient. The suspension seat post, I love that. That actually really helps make this bike feel a little bit more comfortable. It doesn't replace rear suspension, but it still helps out a little bit with that. I like the fact that this has a rear seat and this cargo rack, but again, it's a weird situation since it doesn't have any rear foot pegs anywhere where you can really put rear foot pegs here. You can't beat the convenience of having a folding bike where it folds in half and the handlebars fold down and everything. So the 3-inch fat tires are pretty good too. I was actually impressed with this bike's off-road performance, and this motor is actually really torquey. I don't know if it's because this is such a light bike or what, but this is actually a pretty torquey little setup. I mean, you can go, you're not gonna be doing wheelies and stuff, but you know, you can get going pretty good on this. I think you have a good battery capacity, and I like how the battery just sort of blends in with the rest of the bike and you don't really notice it that much. And for being a basic display, it actually is pretty nice. It's backlit really nice and has your backlight buttons. It would be nice to have a horn on this bike, but you do get that bell, and you do get a decently bright headlight. And the brakes, even though they are cable brakes, they are really good, and they're definitely enough to lock up the wheels. I mean, there's not really much weight behind this bike, so these are really good brakes on this bike, especially since it's so small. Overall, guys, I can definitely recommend the Hitway BK6M if you are looking for a folding style sort of like cargo bike like this. It's really small, it's really convenient to store and everything, and you can just throw it in a car, throw it in your trunk, whatever, and everything folds down on it. Handlebars even fold up. Obviously the stem folds down here too. So this is just a really awesome bike for the price. So again, if you do want to check this thing out, you can use the links in the description and in the pinned comment. With that being said, guys, this has been the BK6M from Hitway. Really awesome bike. And I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.